One of our patients just had a baby and we had no idea she was pregnant.
Ever since that dramatic December day played out at Hacienda Healthcare, a lot has happened. But now we're getting a look at the official police report from the Hacienda investigation. We'll warn you, parts of it are disturbing. For example, when the victim, who police confirm was unable to talk, move, swallow, or breathe normally, was brought to the hospital, a doctor said she showed signs of being sexually active and having given birth before, suggesting this may not have been the only time the woman had a baby. Interviews with Hacienda nurses and employees indicate the woman's stomach had been bloated for 4 months, and she had no menstruation for 6 months. A doctor ordered an ultrasound, but the test was declined by the diagnostic company. The police report even says that in 2002, the victim was part of a group of patients who were believed to have been touched inappropriately.
Got it DNA, have the person in custody, and he's in jail.
And then there's the accused, Nathan Sutherland, arrested after a DNA match. In the report, employees say after the baby was born, Sutherland called in sick for the next 2 to 3 Sundays and told one employee he was going through a rough time and asked her to pray for him.
And I will tell you something that as an investigator, as a member of our community, that I look at as important is this was an employee rather than a stranger who made his way into the facility.
Police say Sutherland was a licensed practical nurse who had direct contact with the victim. Through a court order, they got DNA from Sutherland and say it matched with the victim's baby.
Mr. Sutherland, may I have your full name, please?
Nathan Darcy Sutherland.
And your date of birth?
3/31/1982.
Standing next to his attorney in court today, a judge reads off the serious charges he's facing. A prosecutor, off camera, says the state will not settle for anything less than prison time.
The defendant sexually assaulted a very vulnerable adult who had no capacity to resist, no capacity to cry out, no capacity to do anything other than be subject to what the defendant did to her.
One of our concerns is were there other victims or how many times this occurred. We may not know how many times this occurred.
The only allegation at this point is that there's DNA.
So do you believe the client is innocent?
I believe the client is entitled to due process and proof beyond a reasonable doubt, as all defendants are.
In court, Gregan told the judge there's no proof Sutherland is the guy.
There's no direct evidence that Mr. Sutherland has committed these acts. I know at this point there is DNA. Mr. Sutherland will have a right and have his own DNA expert.
So what can you tell us about the DNA? You were talking...
I can't tell you anything, but I haven't received discovery, but there's an allegation of DNA. That's all I can tell you at this point.
And so you guys do plan to challenge that?
Well, we plan to have it tested, for sure.
So you will run your own DNA tests?
Oh, correct.
Judge set Sutherland's bond at $500,000 cash, which his attorney argued is excessive since Sutherland does not have a criminal history.
All right. One thing stuck out to me there. Defense attorney saying there was no direct evidence of this. Well, all right. There was no eyewitness, there's no videotape, and there's no confession. Okay. That's direct evidence. DNA is circumstantial evidence. They may very well have that. At least they say they have it. Let's bring in Court TV Live anchor Ted Rowlands. Ted, your thoughts about the defense? He said two things: no direct evidence, and then he was asked, is he innocent? And he said, he's entitled to due process.
Yeah, I love that answer. Yeah, or we're going to go through the trial.
It's a true answer. But you know,
this isn't a whodunit, I don't think. In fact, there are negotiations. This was supposed to go to trial next week. It has been postponed to November because of COVID-19. But we do understand that even before, back in April, there were negotiations going back between the state and the accused here on a possible plea deal. So whether this will go to trial in November, we don't know. The bottom line here is that this woman, 29-year-old woman who's been in long-term care since the age of 3 after she suffered seizures as a very young toddler, she basically cannot speak. She can make some facial gestures. She has very limited mobility. This is such a disgusting story that she was in this care facility, Hacienda Care, which at the time, after this happened, shut down for a while. It's back now, but it's being regulated by the state. To imagine what she went through, to be raped by somebody, whether it was Sutherland or not, he's the accused, but impregnated and then gives birth with, the amount of pain that this young woman went through had to be unbelievable, giving birth in this state. It is an absolutely gut-wrenching story.
Absolutely. Let's put up on the screen some of the trial dates coming up, what we have. We've got a pretrial conference that is now scheduled for November 2nd of 2020. Then, as you mentioned, trial in November, the following week, November 9th. And trial expected to last about 15 days. And it's another one that we're tracking here. How about the part that employees at the facility didn't even know she was pregnant? Now, I guess they wouldn't expect her to become pregnant, but I'm wondering how close the monitoring is of her health.
Yeah, and in fact, after this happened, there was a full investigation at Hacienda. They found maggots on another patient. There were some real problems. The CEO ended up resigning. The idea that this woman, after being there for years, all of a sudden begins her belly. They even said her belly started to extend for the last 4 months. Didn't have a didn't have a period for 6 months. I mean, come on, what was going on there? Somebody knew something was going on, but no one raised the red flag, and it's just disgusting to think about what this woman went through, and the fact that they also believes, at least one of the experts believes, that she had been raped many times before. Nathan Sutherland, a guy he's married with children, working there. His DNA is a match, so prosecutors do believe that he's the father, and of course, if he's the father, he raped this woman.
Ted Rollins, thank you so much. Again, we're going to keep our eye on this case, and we'll see if things do, in fact, go in November when everything resumes back to normal.